This presentation is focused on intellectual property and Indigenous materials and what the World Intellectual Property Organisation have been doing to develop the law in this area. In the year 2000, the Intergovernmental Committee on Intellectual Property and Genetic Resources, Traditional Knowledge and Folklore was established by WIPO. So what can Indigenous material look like? Here is a simple example. So Indigenous material is a phrase that can be used to encompass three areas of subject matter, including traditional cultural expressions, also known as TCEs, traditional knowledge and genetic resources. This presentation will mainly focus on TCEs. So TCEs can be defined as productions consisting of characteristic elements of the traditional artistic heritage developed and maintained by a community or individuals reflecting the traditional artistic expectations of such a community. This can involve artwork, dances, performances, rituals, that sort of thing. So why is there a need to protect cultural expressions? It recognises cultural value, promotes respect of artistic heritage, meets the needs of communities, prevents misappropriation and misuse of TCEs, empowers communities, and I think most importantly is the commercialisation and economic development. So how can IP assist in economic development? First, there is the fact that Indigenous communities can establish enterprises, which then create so-called jobs, which then encourages skill development, which then attracts appropriate tourism, which is a very big consideration. And also, lastly, foreign earnings from community products can also be increased. So what does IP actually achieve? Firstly, providing legal protection can allow Indigenous communities to commercialise their tradition-based creations. IP can also exclude free-riding competitors from misusing Indigenous materials. And IP can also assist in certifying origins of Indigenous art and crafts through the means of certification trademarks or by combating the passing off of products as authentic. IP can also be used as a mechanism to exercise control over how cultural expressions are being used, and IP can also be used to defend against any insensitive and degrading use of Indigenous works. So is there a commercial value of Indigenous craft? Yes. WIPO have estimated that in Australia, the Indigenous art and crafts industry has a yearly turnover of almost 130 million US dollars, yet Indigenous people receive only approximately 30 million of that, despite the fact that they rely heavily on this as a source of income. So is there actually success to what WIPO have been doing? So for many years, WIPO have been in text-based negotiations with the objective of reaching an agreement on the text of an international legal instrument with the aim of shoring effective protection of subject matter Indigenous materials. The IGC is working towards reaching a common understanding on core issues, including many ambiguous definitions, including subject matter, protection, and public domain. In 2017, the IGC must submit to the General Assembly the results of its work on their legal instrument, and WIPO also commissioned a review to assess their draft text from the framework of Indigenous human rights, which kind of effectively extends this past just strict IP considerations. Sui generis is also been a consideration for WIPO. The IGC has been developing sui generis or standalone regimes as draft treaties to protect traditional knowledge, genetic resources and TCEs. Australia, along with many other member states, have played an active part in these negotiations. Member states have shown that they're in favour of treaties with more general terminology and not resorting to legal inclusions or exclusions to ensure that international instruments are not trying to create domestic law. And Australia has also emphasised the need for the treaties to be aligned with matters that WIPO could address, effectively reinforcing into IP rights. In 2008, WIPO conducted a gap analysis which was used to assess the suitability of IP laws to provide protection of Indigenous materials. This gap analysis recognised the necessity to move beyond just principles of IP rights to afford protection for Indigenous materials, hence the inclusion of the human rights framework. So what now? The wait is on until the IGC must submit their draft international instruments to the General Assembly, in which they're obligated to do in 2017. Until this date, WIPO will continue to engage in increased negotiations and discussions with key stakeholders and member states, and there seems to be a need for IP to include broader considerations. And that is it. Thank you for listening.